Welcome to How I Got Successful podcast. My name is Priyanka, and today, founder of Safety Starts With You, family violence specialist Marena Ghattas is with us. Welcome, Marena. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Can you share the early experiences or events that ignited your passion for family violence awareness and intervention?
Sure. I started working in family violence about 7 years ago within the court system. And from that, so before that, I was working with asylum seekers and refugees. So I would touch on a little bit of family violence here and there, but mostly in the space for the last 7 years. And so what ignited my work for my company is during COVID. So when COVID began and I was on maternity leave, so I had a baby and I was at home and I was liaising with a lot of colleagues that were still at work and seeing what was happening on the news and seeing what was going on in social media. And I started to realize that something that was really missing during COVID is support for victim survivors of family violence and also the accountability or awareness of the people that were using violence. So because we were in lockdown in Melbourne, we had the longest lockdown in the world, I think. But because we were in lockdown in Melbourne, there was a lot happening behind the closed doors, but people weren't really aware of what was going on. So I remember thinking at that point, we need to do some training, prevention, awareness, support for people. So when we come out of lockdown with all the impacts that they would have gone through, they understand and can identify that actually, if I am put in a family violence situation, this is what I need to know. This is what I can do, and these are the supports I can get. And similarly, a lot of the time, people that use violence don't actually know they're using violence. So educating people who use violence on what does family violence actually look like, and how can they be aware of their behaviors and be accountable for that. So yeah, it started during COVID, really.
And that's a great thing you noticed and you acted upon that.
Yeah, thank you.
What motivated you to start Safety Starts With You, and how did the idea evolve into reality? Because that was just an idea before.
Yes, it was an idea. So it was a very random postpartum idea of I had a baby, all my emotions were going everywhere. We were in lockdown. I was stuck at home. I wasn't working. And one day, again, thinking about what was going on in society at the time, I said to my husband, I really want to be able to go out and educate young people on family violence. So go out to schools, go out to the community, and just talk to people about what is family violence, educating young boys in particular on what does family violence look like? What are the behaviors that you're using that constitute family violence? And then hopefully seeping through to victim survivors of family violence and educating them on their supports and how they can get out of it. So I said to my husband, I really want to do this. And he said, okay, let's do it. I said, what do you mean, let's do it? I can't start my own business. What are you talking about? This is big people stuff. This isn't stuff for a person who's just had a baby sitting at home. And he said, what do you mean? You know the work. You know what you're talking about. Just do it. And so that was in 2020. And I sat with that. And every time we had a conversation, it came up. And he said, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? And I think I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. And in my head, I didn't think I could ever start a company or a business or an organization because that's just what big people do. That's not what me would do. And so one day, by absolute coincidence, I always tell this story. We went to a warehouse store, so to pick up some things. And my husband went in to grab some things from the store and me and my daughter waited in the car. And he came out and he said, come inside. They're running activities for little kids. Come inside. Let's go see the activities. And I said, no, too tired. We've had a long morning. We took the little one to swimming, ready to go home. He said, come on, just come in. I'm going to bring her in. She'll have fun. So we went inside. And when we went to the activities, the person who was running the activities I started having a conversation with them. And I said, how do you do this job? This is a really good job. And so one thing led to another. And she asked about my career. And I explained my career. And she said, that's fantastic. That's really good. I want to invite you because I started talking about family violence and my passion and how I want to start a business one day, but I'm too nervous to do it. And she said to me, I want to invite you to one of our meetings. And in these meetings, we have a lot of community members that can come in. Just come and observe. You don't have to participate. You don't have to contribute. Just come and observe what the community needs. And so I said, okay, no worries. So I attended that meeting. It was one night, a Tuesday night after work, actually. And I attended that meeting. And in that meeting, everybody, by absolute coincidence, got up and started to talk about their work, what they do, how they help the community. And so my turn came. And I was like, I've got nothing to offer. Like, I don't have a company. I don't work for an organization or a small organization. I can't offer anything. But they said, just come up and talk about who you are and what you want to do. So I was like, okay. So I went up and I started to explain the concept of my business to the audience. And I said, I want to go out to community. I want to educate community on family violence. I want to do professional development for staff to educate them on what family violence looks like, how they respond to it. And then I sat down and I just felt so funny and so silly. And like, I just got up and spoke to all these great people about an idea. Like, that's ridiculous. But at the end of the meeting, I had people lining up to talk to me and waiting and giving me their business cards. And one person in particular said, I want to have a meeting with you tomorrow. Can you come to my office tomorrow? Let's have a chat about your idea. And I just thought an idea at that moment for the first time felt like, okay, I can actually maybe make this happen. And so I came home, I told my husband, I was extremely excited. It ignited the spark. And so then I said to him, I need to do this. He said, that's what I've been telling you for 3 years. And so spoke to the accountant, got it all set up, and that's where the business started.
Amazing. Amazing story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you share some key milestone and moments in the growth of SSWY that you are particularly proud of?
That was one of them. So that moment was a very special moment because for the first time, I actually put my idea out there and I got a response. And the response was so positive. And it was a milestone that started all of it for me. And then the second milestone was getting my first booking. So getting my first booking and talking to young people about family violence, and consent and just some of the hard conversations to have with young people. And on one of the feedback forms, and I talk about this a lot, but on one of the feedback forms from a 10-year-old, at the bottom, she said, the thing that I learned today is that I can say no and not to be scared to say no. And for me, it just reminded me that this is why I'm doing this work. It's to teach the young generations or the generations that are coming up that you can say no to violence. You can say no to sexual assault. You can say no to some of the behaviors or all the behaviors that you don't want perpetrated against you. It's okay to stand up and say no. So that was another milestone. And then just meeting people. Every time I meet somebody, I learn something new. And I think it's a stepping stone in the bigger picture. And every time I meet someone, it just adds to the story of SSWY. And it's so exciting to just see it grow.
Really great. I think this is really the need of an hour right now in our society.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
How has the public's perception of family violence evolved and how does that impact your work?
That's a great question. The public's perception of family violence, I can speak on behalf of where I am and where I work. So I'm obviously based in Australia. And what I've noticed is, so 50 years ago, family violence was an unspoken. We knew it happened, we knew it was there, but people don't really talk about it. Not even 50 years ago, as recent as 30 years ago, 20 years ago. So some of the changes that I've seen is the governments are taking a stand. And so this stand is what's bringing the change along. It's a very, very, very slow change. But in the past, if you heard your neighbours fighting, you would say, that's their problem, behind closed doors, not my problem. But now the change in society is, if you witness or experience or hear something that's not okay, to call it out and to actually say, hold on, this is not okay. I will actually call the police because it sounds like somebody could be in danger. Or I will actually tell that person who's making a joke about family violence, that's actually not okay. And so that's the change in society and the change in community that I think, in particular over the last 7 to 10 years, is what I've noticed, is that people are starting to identify the behaviors. And it's coming out of the training. It's coming out of the prevention programs. It's coming out of the awareness that people are coming out and saying women cannot be physically, verbally, emotionally, psychologically assaulted. It's not okay. And not just women, men, young people. Everybody has an entitlement to being respected and to being treated like a human, and that's not tolerable behavior.
Yeah, that's great. It is evolving and it is actually required not only in your country. I feel like everywhere, worldwide, this is required.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And I think we've still got a very long way to go,
Yeah.
but I think we are making the right steps, hopefully in the right directions.
What are some of the most pressing issues you see in the realm of family violence today?
Kind of contradicting what I just said, but the lack of education. So I think people need to be educated on what family violence is. A lot of the time in my work, when I'm speaking to people who are using violence, they say, I didn't use violence. I didn't hit her. I didn't touch her. I didn't do anything to her. Yes, but it doesn't take physical. You don't have to have physical bruises to be considered a person who uses violence or to be considered somebody who's experienced violence. Family violence is covered in plenty of different forms. And it's educating society, educating the community, educating young girls and boys on this behavior is not okay. Similarly, I think also the impact on children. A lot of the time people don't understand what the impact on children is, and that is a concern in itself because we think children are in their room asleep. They don't know what's going on. But actually, we know research tells us that children are very aware of what's going on. It's as young as people in utero or children in utero, like babies in mum's tummy can experience and feel the impacts of family violence. And we see that through research. When they're born and when they grow, we see the difference in that. And so it's education. Education is key in this space for that.
You are on the way of educating people about that.
I'm hoping, I'm trying to. So, yes.
Can you discuss some successful initiatives or campaigns that have made a notable difference in raising awareness?
Yes, I can. And I think the biggest ones for me are what we see on TV. So recently on TV, we've seen massive campaigns of the behavior being called out. So this is not okay. In particular, governments taking a stance and saying it's not okay. Campaigns, I'm speaking on behalf of the campaigns we have in Victoria, in my state, but we've got the 16 days of activism against family violence. We've got the campaigns on TV. We've got the White Ribbon Foundation. So there are so many campaigns out there for awareness for violence against women and children and people in general to alert on the issues because the issue is massive and it's not going to be resolved overnight. But these campaigns I've noticed are making people have conversations that generally in the past we've been too nervous to have. So if you're in the pub and you hear somebody talking about, I don't know, making a derogatory comment, for example, or talking about a behavior they use towards their partner that's not acceptable, in the past you'd laugh it off and think it's okay. But these campaigns are actually identifying that that's not okay, and it's okay for you to call that out. It's okay for you to say, hold on, Bob, that's not acceptable. Maybe you need to think about what you're doing. And so I think that's a noticeable difference in the campaigns that are happening more recently to identify what the behaviors are.
That's great. Advocating for such a critical issue can be emotionally challenging. How do you take care of your own well-being while dealing with the heaviness of family violence issues?
That's a really good question. So through supervision, so I get clinical supervision, so I'm able to talk about what's going on for me and some of the challenges I've got. I think also through my professional career, I've learned that what happens at work kind of stays at work, and I need to disengage from that when I'm at home. So it's being aware of this is what I can control. This is my life. This is work, and I need to leave work at work. But utilizing support such as family, talking through the feelings and emotions, getting counseling when needed. Counseling is really important as well. Yes, for a practitioner as it is for everybody else, because we do sit with, or I do sit with really heavy conversations, really heavy topics, really heavy contexts. And sometimes I need to release that and have conversations and let that out. So through talking generally.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Are there specific self-care practices or habits that you find helpful in maintaining resilience and passion for your work?
Yes. Every time I see a positive outcome, so for me, that is a motivator. So I'm very outcome or solutions driven. And so when I have a good meeting or I land a good client, or like that 10-year-old girl that said, I know to say no and not to be scared to say no, little things like that is what keep me going. And that's what builds my resilience. Yes, some days are hard. Sometimes you get pushed back. Sometimes a situation doesn't go as you want it to or as you plan it to be. But it's remembering that Rome wasn't built in a day. And so this change isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to be a gradual process, and I can play my part in that process.
What are your future plans and aspirations for Safety Starts With You and your work in family violence prevention?
My future plans are big for Safety Starts With You. So at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm going out and offering prevention training, facilitating prevention training, but also foundational training on family violence. So yes, we've got the prevention component, but we're also doing the foundational training to support people who may encounter family violence, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in schools, whether it's out in the shops, whether it's in community. How do you respond to that? So it's doing the prevention of identifying what family violence is and trying not to use the behavior, but also the foundational training of this is what it looks like. How are you going to work with that if you need to? And so that's where I'm at the moment. So ideally, I want to be one of the big people that do that and then eventually move it into an organization. So the end goal for me through Safety Starts With You is to support women, children, and people who have experienced family violence. Big plans are one day to open up a refuge or to open up an organization where I can provide the emotional support, but also the financial support. Because the biggest challenge we've got at the moment is when a woman decides to leave a violent relationship, a lot of the time she stays because she doesn't know where to go. Whether it's because doesn't have a job, or she's been isolated, or she's been so financially dependent on the person using violence that she hasn't actually been able to explore other options. And so my ideal situation is to fix that. So it's to create an organization that we can support women and children. We can support anybody actually who's been perpetrated against, or violent, or somebody's used violence towards them, and then to go out and offer them, just a safe space to be. And then kind of on the contrary to that, to work with people who have used violence and to help them make the change. So a lot of the work that I do as well is with people who have used violence. I run what's called men's behavior change groups. So I facilitate them. And so working with people who have used violence, a lot of the time they say, I didn't actually know I was perpetrating violence, or I didn't actually know that that was a behavior that's not okay. Sometimes it's the truth. Sometimes it's not the truth. But for the people that genuinely don't understand what family violence is, I want to be able to educate them and support them. So the big plans are one day there to hopefully have a massive organization to tackle these issues. But for now, I'm just taking it a step at a time with the training, the prevention, the identification, and the foundational, what is family violence.
Great plans. And one thing actually caught my interest that when you said that females are staying in the relationship because they are not independent financially. So they have to stay. They don't have any choice for that. So that means, you continue.
Sorry. Well, the biggest thing that we always hear is, why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she leave? And actually, she can't leave for a number of reasons. She can't leave because maybe financially she can't afford to leave, or there's children between them, or she still loves him. She actually doesn't want to leave him. But instead of constantly asking, why doesn't she leave? What we should be asking, and what society should be asking, is, why doesn't he change his behavior? And sorry, I'm using a lot of gendered language here. So referring to the victim survivor as a she and referring to the perpetrator or the person using violence as a he. I believe that men can also be subjected to violence, but the statistics tell us that women experience violence more, which is why I use the gendered language. It's not to dismiss a man's experience of family violence, because I do acknowledge that men do experience it, but that's why I use that gender terminology. So again, it's focusing on the change of behavior. He needs to change his behavior. She shouldn't have to change or leave or just deal with it just because.
Yeah, that's great idea that he should change his behavior. And a second thing which I feel that can be important is women also should be financially independent, so that
Correct.
she actually has a choice.
Correct.
She want to leave or not, that is her choice, but she has a choice. If anything happens to her, she can leave.
I think the challenge with the financial independence is that sometimes a form of abuse is financial abuse as well. And so that form of financial abuse is the person using violence or the perpetrator will stop her from getting a job, will take all her income, all her social security supports, will take that from her. So financially, they disable the person from being able to leave. So it's not a situation of there's money there or it's no money there, but it's the perpetrator's way or the tactics that they use to stop her from leaving. And financial abuse is a big one. And we hear that all the time. I can't leave because I've got no money, or he's taken all my money, or he's taken out loans or debts in my name that I need to pay for, but I can't because I've got no money, so I'm stuck. So they're kind of the challenges around the financial abuse.
What I'm listening is there are something related to one relationship building. If the beginning, the relationship should be built in a such way that everything is clear, then this can be reduced.
Well, that's the challenge with family violence. So, and this is a whole conversation. I could talk about this for hours, but the challenge with family violence is coercive control. So, coercive control is putting fear and intimidation through threatening behaviors towards a person to do things that maybe they don't want to do. So, what we kind of generally see in relationships that end up not safe is that the perpetrator or the person using violence knows what they're looking for. So they can identify and say, I love you. So a common thing, for example, not a common thing, but an example would be getting in a relationship where if she goes out, he'll text her 10 times and say, where are you? Are you home okay? Are you home safe? Sometimes people think, oh, he loves me. He cares about me. He's doing it from a place of care. But then that grows into control. So family violence is power and control. And that's where a healthy relationship turns unhealthy, is when one person in that relationship holds that power and control. And that power and control is what gives them, I guess, the authority to behave the way they do in that context. So he can say to her, you can go and see your family, but I love spending time with you. So how about you spend some time with me instead of seeing your family? And we could go see your family tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and it's like, no, babe, I really love you. How about we stay together again tonight? And it's slowly isolating her from the people that her family, her friends, the people that she associates with. And they're tiny little tactics and patterns that happen. So family violence is not one-off. It's not a one-off incident. Family violence is a pattern of behavior that consistently develops into an unhealthy relationship. And so that's why the point that you make around these are things that we should discuss at the start of a relationship. Yes, they are, but a perpetrator knows exactly what they're doing. A perpetrator is trying to have power and control in that relationship. You can't wear that dress. It's too short. You can't go out with your friends because I don't like them. You can't work because I need you to stay home with the children. You can't spend money because we don't have money for you to spend, but I can go out and do what I want to do because I'm the breadwinner. I make a lot of the money. So these things develop throughout the course of a relationship. It could take 1 or 2 weeks. It could take 10 to 15 years and longer. So the behaviors are patterns that just keep growing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's actually, I think we all are observing in our society, but nobody speaks about that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
At the end, what message or advice would you like to share with others, especially those interested in making a difference in the field of family violence?
The message or advice is, if you are interested in the family violence space, it's a fantastic space to work in. Yes, the work is challenging. Yes, the work is hard. Yes, it's confronting. But when you see that you've made a change in one person's life, that in itself is enough to keep you going. And it's not even making a change. It's just that support. So it's not about gratitude. It's not about hearing, thank you, you've changed my life. That's not what it is. But it's knowing that that person is going to be safe tonight. It's knowing that that person has another tool in their toolkit to help them navigate some of the challenges that they have faced or may have to face moving forward. So it's being in the space, it's being challenged. So a lot of the time, people don't like to work with the people that are using violence. That's kind of a bit of a awkward taboo space. But I love that challenge, because educating men, educating people on what family violence actually is the key to prevention. Because if they're not aware of their behaviors, then the behaviors will never change. So I guess my advice would be, persist and keep going and keep educating and keep learning and keep educating yourself. So I'm learning every day. Every day I learn something different. So it's stay persistent in the education, because that is what's going to prevent it.
Thank you so much, Marena.
You're very welcome. Thank you.